Ladies and gents, boys and girls, welcome. Thursday, January the 4th, 2024. Hope you were all doing well. Chris Phillips here, your host of SEC Unfiltered Live. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in wherever you may be checking us out. Facebook, X, YouTube, Twitch, wherever it might be. Also, those in the chat right now. I see Travi, Xavier, Ethan K, Madison Duncan, Bruin Nation. What's going on, guys? Appreciate you all tuning in. We have got a jam-packed show, folks. It has been a busy morning over here at HQ. Lots happening, guys. You know, people asked me when we did this rebrand, relaunch, the SEC Unfiltered Initiative, Chris, what are you going to talk about? I'm like, what are we not going to talk about? The hardest part of this gig is picking and choosing what to discuss because it's content bleeding out the eyeballs. It's topics and conversations, and there's so many different things happening when you're talking all 16 teams in the SEC, including Texas and Oklahoma. But guys, again, a jam-packed show. We'll kick things off here in just a few minutes with Marc Ryan of the Fan Upstate. More on that in just a second, by the way, for some of you out there saying, wait, what? We're going to kick things off with Marc Ryan. Also, guys, I'm giving my postseason quarterback rankings in the SEC. It felt only right. We did these over the summer. We actually updated them mid-season as well. Figure why not? We'll do some postseason quarterback rankings. Also, guys, we are previewing, breaking down, discussing the national championship game, which will take place on Monday night in Houston, Michigan, and Washington. I'll give my full preview and prediction. Also, guys, big news today, this morning, right before we jumped on, is Quinshon Judkins, Ole Miss ball carrier, officially hits the transfer portal. You know, it's funny. I wondered why yesterday I got a voicemail that said, hey, Chris, where do you think Quinshon Judkins ends up, right? Is he going to be at Alabama? Is he going to – and I was like, why would he be asking that? Like, I didn't even know Quinshon Judkins was a candidate to hit the transfer portal, and sure enough, it comes out today. I actually talked to my Ole Miss guy just before this. So, guys, I'll give you the latest on what I'm hearing, and also we'll just talk what it means for Ole Miss, what it means for a talent like Quinshon Judkins to be in the portal, and maybe, just maybe, where he could land. Finally, guys, really exciting news also this morning. We're getting details on Monday about the NCAA football video game. Sounds like we could get some images. Maybe we get some videos. Maybe we get an official release date. Very exciting stuff. Guys, on that note, I will talk things I'm most hoping to see in the new NCAA football video game. It sounds like during the national championship, EA Sports are going to run some ad or some commercial, or maybe just comes out on social media, whatever. But you can expect on Monday night, that is when we will find out more details on the NCAA football video game. And guys, as you all know, I'm a huge, huge fan of the game. We've done NCAA football simulations over the last couple of years. We will do those again. Now, I don't know exactly how it's going to look because simulating the season for all 16 teams we'd have to start right now, I think. And maybe we'd finish sometime this summer or sometime before the season. But we will do something when it comes to NCAA football content, guys. There's going to be so much of that, right? When that game comes out, the amount of people who are going to be streaming that, who are going to be going live, is going to be insane. Yours truly is going to be one of those, undoubtedly. And then finally, guys, we'll take your questions, comments, and voicemails in our daily mailbag segment. Really looking forward to hearing from you guys, whether you're on Facebook, you're on YouTube. You want to call 843-790-3377. You can also text that number. Again, I'd love to hear from you. Guys, you're watching on YouTube. Please be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that bell icon so you get notifications of when we go live, when we drop new video content as well. Also, guys, you can find SEC Unfiltered in podcast form. Spotify, Google Podcasts, of course, iTunes, but wherever you get your podcasts, you can find us where you find all podcasts, SEC Unfiltered. And then, of course, guys, we're all across social media, every single social media platform you can think of. Content consistently bleeding out of the eyeballs. Guys, Marc Ryan says he's running about 5 minutes late, which is okay. So about 12:10, we'll get him on. But again, guys, Thank you all so much, man, for the continued love and support. I will say we're beginning the process right now. I want to say thank you to all those who have expressed interest in coming on the SEC Unfiltered team and joining our team of contributors. I really, it's been awesome. I mean, I've probably got about 40 emails to go through of different candidates, if you will. The plan is to add, like I mentioned, 6 to 8 football contributors, 3 to 4 basketball, 3 to 4 baseball, 3 to 4 gambling. And really, guys, the goal is this. I'll tell you this, too. I'll shed some light. So right now, this is SEC Unfiltered Live. And you guys saw the segment, I'm sure, on New Year's Day with Dave Shoemate. He runs Mock 10 Sports. The goal is to have 3 or 4, in the beginning, 3 or 4 other shows running on this network. So maybe this becomes the Chris Phillips show, right? Maybe this is something where it's not just, because SEC Unfiltered is not just Chris Phillips. It's not a solopreneurship. It's an entrepreneurship. It's a company. It's a full-fledged entity. So that's what we're evolving to. That's what we're moving towards. Again, we just started. We just kicked off 2024, but really excited for what's to come. And you guys should be as well, man. It just means more great content for you guys. And my goal and initiative and plan is to build out the biggest and best possible entity on the internet when it comes to the SEC and potentially even beyond. Again, we got a couple comments here. Looks like I'm not sure if Captain Jim Smith is an Ole Miss guy, but he says Quinshawn's been advised to get a better contract with NIL to announce for the portal. He is bought in to stay. Okay. So playing the NIL game, very interesting. Playing the NIL game. I mean, that's the nature of the beast, right? And these guys, here's the thing. These guys all have agents who are telling them what to do, what they should do, how to leverage certain situations, if you will. That's why you get an agent, right? Is for leverage and to handle situations like this. So, we'll see. I mean, guys, I think Ole Miss, and we'll get in this more later in the show. I think Ole Miss is going to be fine either way. I mean, if there's one position that you could argue is expendable, if there's one position you could argue is expendable, I mean, I guess you could say it's running back. I know South Carolina would probably disagree because the running back wasn't there. But honestly, guys, if you have the offensive line, you can find someone to block, or you can find someone to run, right? If you have the blockers up front, you can find someone to run. So anyways, guys, I also want to say thank you so much for the ever-growing love and support on YouTube. I mean, dude, we are literally growing every single day when it comes to our subscribers. Our video content on YouTube is doing great. The numbers are unlike we've ever seen before. I didn't really even start pushing YouTube, guys, until like middle of October, because I knew this was going to come at some point, this SEC Unfiltered initiative, if you will, this launch. And I knew that I wanted YouTube to be a big part. Number one, because it's great to grow the brand that way. Number two, because it's great for monetization. Honestly, guys, it's great for revenue for the business. And I can sit here and tell you guys, I mean, it has been wildly, wildly successful. I mean, we're looking at, thousands and thousands of views on videos, and we're doing numbers like we've never done before. And again, I just can't say thank you enough, man. It's truly special. Let's see. Brewer Nation, I need my PS5 guys to tell me which one to buy. Someone said that one was better than the other. What's the difference? Got to upgrade from PS4 to 5 for the new NCAA game. Brewer Nation, I've got a PS5, and I'll tell you this. I literally bought a PS5 around this time last year because I thought the game was coming out last summer. So I was like, I need to get a console so I can stream, so I can play this, whatever. I mean, I think PS5 is great. Here's the thing. It's a hefty investment, right? A PlayStation 5 is a hefty investment for one game. But looking at it how I was going to look at it, I was like, you know what? We're going to be streaming this thing. It's basically a business expense. So that's kind of the beauty of it. Let's see. Again, guys, appreciate you all. I see you all in the chat. Really, really good stuff, guys. A jam-packed day. Like really, truly so much happening. The transfer portal continues to be crazy. Recruiting. We had the Under Armour All-American game yesterday, last night. A lot of teams with some top-notch prospects playing in that ball game. A lot of fans feeling good about what they saw. Dylan Stewart for South Carolina looked really good. Michael Van Buren, the quarterback, signee for Mississippi State. I thought Mississippi State, that was a very successful game for them. A lot of big-time players. Tennessee had some guys pop off in that ball game. So, anyways, let's see. Proven Nation, 2 different kinds of PlayStation 5. I have no idea, to be honest. I got the PlayStation 5 that I thought was the one. To the point, Justin, actually, I think mine might be download only. I'd have to go over there and look at it. I think it's download only because I've only downloaded games. So, I don't know. And I'm not a huge gamer, but again, I literally got the PlayStation solely for the purpose of streaming. That's it. So let's see. Guys, got a great conversation lined up tomorrow with our good friend Chris Doring of SEC Network. Really good stuff, guys. Chris was actually at the Rose Bowl, so getting his take and hearing him talk about the Rose Bowl, him being there in person, was really cool. Again, you guys will hear that full conversation tomorrow. That'll kick off our show tomorrow. And also, guys, of course, we will talk all things SEC basketball as we break down the full slate of games this weekend. Really excited for SEC hoops, for things to get going on the hardwood. This is not just a football show, obviously. We talk basketball. We talk baseball. Again, Saturday, you got Mississippi State, South Carolina, Florida, Kentucky, Georgia, Mizzou, Auburn, Arkansas, Bama, Vandy, Ole Miss, and Tennessee, and LSU and A&M. I think it's really cool and really fun. Going to be fun. Both South Carolina and Ole Miss, who have been 2 of the upstart teams in the SEC. Of course, South Carolina's 12-1. Ole Miss is 13-0. I think both have a really, really big opportunity to prove themselves. I mean, South Carolina on the home floor especially. You'd expect Colonial Life Arena to be a really raucous environment. They want to prove, and South Carolina hasn't dipped their toe in the top 25 yet. They want to prove they're that caliber of team. And then you got Ole Miss, who's ranked 22nd, who, again, 13-0. You look at the schedule, though. I mean, they don't have any crazy impressive wins, but I mean, when you're undefeated, you're undefeated. And Chris Beard doing great work early on. They take on the Tennessee Volunteers, the 5th ranked, by the way, Tennessee Volunteers, at their place. So Ole Miss, I think even in a loss, can earn a lot of respect in that ball game. And of course, guys, we'll go down the list of games tomorrow fully in depth, but there's some really, really fun matchups on Saturday for sure. And, guys, I was asked many times over the month of December, are you going to talk basketball? Are you going to basketball content going to be part of what you do? Absolutely. It's just really hard in December to get invested in basketball when it's non-conference and the competition obviously isn't what it's going to be in conference play. And you got so much going on with football. We all know football is king, but I'm really excited for conference play to get going in the SEC and just kind of see what these teams are made of. Some of them that I think, we're optimistic on, we're high on, but you just never know until conference play begins. Guys, with that being said, he joins us weekly. Really excited. It's been a few weeks, obviously, with the holiday, Christmas, New Year, all that good stuff. But he's one of the best in the business, always brings the heat. Our good friend Marc Ryan of the Fan Upstate, he joined the show. Marc, what's going on, my man? Happy New Year to you and yours. How are you?
Chris, I like what you've done with the place. Look at this. Look at this. Moving on up, moving on up. Happy New Year to you, sir. Happy New Year to most of your audience, okay? Wishing very well to most of your audience. But that audience is expanding now, isn't it?
Some Gators in here, Marc. Per sources, there's some Gators in here. So,
yeah. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. Congratulations on the re-imaging. Congratulations on the new look, on the new brand. And congratulations, Chris, on being able to discuss more than just a middling, underachieving, kind of a joke of a college football program over its entire existence. You have now leveled up, my friend. It is Mario eating the mushroom. Why would anyone sign on to only being able to talk about the Gamecocks and that history? Yeah, of course you made a great decision, Chris. Of course you did. All right? Like, that is the picture of depression to me. Having to talk about, a meddling program that can't get out of its own way, that's never really achieved anything substantial. Spread your wings. Grow up. Chris, I was watching a little bit about Colin Cowherd's show today, and he was saying that, he thinks Pittsburgh should move on from Mike Tomlin, and people say that's nuts. And he's like, look, you get to a point at a place where you just feel like you've topped out. He said he felt that way when he was at ESPN. Chris, you topped out at the Spurs Up show. The Spurs Up show could no longer handle your potential and your growth. And when you've got an entrepreneurial mind and the entrepreneurial spirit that you have, and I believe I possess, we can't be chained down. There's only one kind of handcuffs that you and I like, and it's not in business. Okay?
Well, Marc, I appreciate the kind words. Truly, it means a lot, even at the expense of the University of South Carolina football program. But one of the reasons, Marc, and for those who don't realize who are tuned in, Marc Ryan of the Fan Upstate, as long as he agrees to, it's going to continue to be a weekly guest for us. Marc, one of the reasons, and I told you this off record, is because I don't look at you as, a local or regional guy. I do look at you as a national guy, and I think you bring great value, not just to talking SEC, but just we could talk about any sport. We could talk MLB. We could talk NBA, whatever it might be. But I also like having you on because you do have some of that Palmetto State flavor, right? Which, I like to keep around. So on that note, you put out a post, I believe it was yesterday, and this sort of goes with what we're seeing across the entire SEC and college football, though, the transfer portal. We just saw Quinshon Judkins from Ole Miss, the running back, into the portal. Grayson Pup Howard, who didn't play a lot last year for South Carolina, but he enters the transfer portal. This guy was a 4-star signee.
And now going to Florida.
And now the rumor, yes, is he is going to go to Florida because he is, quote unquote, homesick. You mentioned that Florida, you felt like was at this point a middle of the pack, or maybe even, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think you said a feeder program. Your thoughts on that? I mean, do you feel like that's where we've gotten in college football, where it's like programs like South Carolina, like Florida, have sort of turned into the minor leagues for the Georgias, Bamas, the upper echelon, if you will, where it's like you never know if your favorite team is going to be able to hold on to a top talent because of where we are.
It's so hilarious, Chris. Yesterday when I sent that tweet out, Gamecock fans were all like, we call them angry birds when they get very, very upset. They were all ready to go nuts until they read the tweet, and they're like, okay, Marc put our comeback to this tweet where, when Marc says something about South Carolina, we like to say, but what about your school, Florida? Marc already has our comeback in the tweet where he says, look, South Carolina has become a minor league program to college football's wealthy. Florida lost Trevor Etienne to Georgia. You guys have all talked about having a separate trophy for the group of 5. Is it now time that we also have a separate trophy for the mid-level programs like Florida and South Carolina? And Gamecock fans were like, wait a minute, you just said what we were about to say. I'm not used to Marc Ryan putting our own comeback, which upset a lot of Florida fans. Here's the reality, Chris. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out whether you're good or bad at your job. Look at the numbers. Look at the data. Okay? You had a massive number of downloads last year, over 600,000. We set a station record for downloads. We broke our own station record for downloads. Our medium is one where a majority of your audience is live. And, this medium has been catching up to the on-demand market, right? Your market, it's almost all on demand, right? Like your medium, it's almost all on demand. You're trying to increase your live audience. So we're doing different things, but back to the point at hand, Chris, Gator fans were upset by that. All you got to do is look at the standings page to see if you're good or bad at your job. Florida has been a mid-level program since 2010. It is now too long of a period to say it's a blip. It has been a trend. If it upsets you as a Gator fan, good. It upsets me. Okay? But admission is the first step toward recovery. You got to admit where you are. Chris, do you disagree with this? I think it's gross. I think it's disgusting. And, Quinshon Judkins today, what happened there? He looked at what Juice Wells was getting and saying, I need more. Hey, my agent, listen, I wasn't going to transfer. I played in a bowl game, but I'm seeing what some of these cats are getting. That's not what my paycheck says. Get me more. I mean, that's if that's your hypothesis about what happened with Quinshon Judkins, you're accurate. Trevor Etienne, Chris, I don't wish him well. Why does everyone need to say you wish them well? When the girl breaks up with you in your life or my life, and we say, I wish you well, do you really mean it? You don't mean it. Okay. I don't wish Trevor Etienne well when he transfers to a rival. That is sacrilege, Chris. You just there are some things you just don't do, regardless of whether or not it's a good business decision. You don't do what he did. So, no, I don't root for him. I'm not pulling for him. I don't wish him well. I hope the Georgia thing bombs. Then I wish him well after that. I don't wish him failure for life. I wish that this move that he made based on greed, I hope it falls flat on its face. I think it's disgusting, and I take it that I'm going to get a lot of I told you so's from Gator fans today on Pup Howard. Nothing I said changes, Chris. Florida and South Carolina right now feel like feeder programs for the wealthy in college football. And, working against Florida, they've got a big fan base, top 10 fan base in size. They're in Gainesville, Florida. It's a small college town. Working against South Carolina, I think, is not the lack of funds for the school, Chris. It's that anybody who became wealthy by making smart business decisions is not going to view giving South Carolina $1 million as a smart business decision. That's not how they became millionaires, giving programs money that have historically wasted it, right? So anyway, Chris, boy, I am going on. I am going down the primrose path. I feel like I'm hosting a segment. That is too much to digest.
Well, Marc, let's get on the field, talk about some of these bowl games, specifically the college football playoff. Michigan takes down Alabama 27-20 in overtime. Washington beats Texas. I want to give you your roses because you nailed it. You nailed it with your predictions. I heard you talking earlier this week on the radio. Did anybody get it more accurate than Marc Ryan? So I want to give you a moment to bask in the glory and also just get your takeaways from what you saw in both of those games in the college football playoff.
Chris, we are in a society of freezing cold takes, right? Old takes exposed, where everyone wants to highlight when you're wrong.
Did we lose Marc Ryan for a second there? Let's see. Okay. Cannot hear you, Marc. I'm gonna let's see. Okay. All right. So Marc Ryan going to join us back. I think he probably just got a phone call. I think that's probably what happened. So we'll get Marc Ryan back in here. We'll get Marc Ryan back. He was starting to gloat, and the hackers kicked him out. So for those who are new, by the way, who tune in, from time to time, we will have hackers. Instead of calling them technical issues, we've got hackers, whether they be Muschamp hackers, they be Mike Bobo hackers, whoever they may be. So here we go. We're going to get him back in here.
Chris, I got to do it too. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I got to do a tutorial with you, man, on what to do when the phone call comes in. Because every time the phone call comes in, it boots me from the thing. So I gotta figure out the settings or something there, man. It's just, why would you not have the default setting that allows me to just X out of a phone call and it doesn't kick me off the screen? Could happen again, Chris. Could happen again in the next 5 or 10 minutes. I'm deeply apologetic. So I was saying, Chris, that we live in a society where everyone highlights when you're wrong and it's crickets when you're right. And you see that in terms of the engagement. But I in fairness, I could have easily been wrong on both of those games, right? If you played those games again, would you get the same result? Who knows, right? When you have two good matchups, that's the reality of the situation. But I was the only one I know that had scores that close and the two right teams. The consensus was that we were going to have an Alabama-Texas rematch. I don't know who you picked, Chris.
That's where I fell. That's where I fell.
If you can, well, you did fall. I hope you didn't hurt yourself too bad on that fall, man. If you realize that Alabama was plus 17 special teams points in that game and lost, you go through those plays, a muffed punt for a touchdown for Alabama, 2 made 50-yard field goals. They got a great kicker, but is a college kicker going to routinely make over 50-yard field goals every time? Michigan missed their field goal. Michigan missed an extra point. If you give Alabama one of their 2 50-yard field goals, Chris, and then you say, okay, the rest of the stuff doesn't happen. Michigan doesn't fumble a punt. Michigan doesn't miss an extra point. You know what the final score of that game is? Michigan 24, Alabama 10. They were a much better team than Alabama in that game. And I watched enough of Washington to get the sense that they were a better team than Texas. And did you not get that sense watching that game? Wow. Okay. The theory was that Texas was a little bit better than Washington. The theory was wrong. And the reason is that Michael Penix Jr. is a living witch.
Now, I think I've heard you mention a couple times, Marc, as we look at the national title game, Michigan and Washington, it's good versus evil. Can you expand on that? I think obviously I know where you're going with it, but just talk about that title game. And again, I think that's just a really interesting way to look at it, the good versus evil narrative in that one.
Of course. Washington, the total underdog. Schools like South Carolina and Florida say, well, if we get rid of Beamer and Napier, who are we going to get that's better? Well, Lance Leipold still doesn't really have a name. Certainly didn't a few years ago. Kalen DeBoer doesn't have a name. Certainly didn't a few years ago. You're the athletic director. Go find the next one of those guys because they're out there. How about that as an underdog story? Kalen DeBoer takes off over 4-8 Washington. They were 4-8. The Gamecocks can relate to that record, right? 4-8. Look at where they are now. Started from the bottom. Now we're here. Okay. Look at where they are now. Michael Penix Jr., 4 consecutive seasons ended by injury, season-ending injury, lied on the floor of his dorm room bed crying on an Indiana game day, asking himself if he wanted to continue this life. Okay. Think about the underdog story. Think about the fact that they don't meet the blue chip ratio. No team that has ever failed to meet the blue chip ratio has ever won the national championship. Got to be at 50% or better. 4 or 5 star players on your team coming out of high school. Washington's at 34%. They are the ultimate underdog story. And Michigan cheated. And Michigan knows they cheated. And Chris, Michigan acknowledged they cheated by accepting their punishment and by firing those on their staff who did cheat. I'm not concerned with who on the staff knew about it. I see video of Michigan players calling Ohio State's signal on the sidelines. It was obviously pervasive throughout the program, right? Obviously, everyone knows the scoop. They cheated. To me, there was a far greater argument for keeping Michigan out of the playoff than there was Florida State's. Still is. They cheated. I'm a high school teacher, Chris. You cheat, you get a 0. Did Michigan get a 0 when they cheated? You know what I mean? Did Michigan get a 0? No, they didn't. Here they are in the national championship game. I do think it's going to be tough for Washington to win this game. I do. I believe my score is 31-20 Michigan. I don't think it's a great matchup for Washington. Their chance is somehow, if they keep Michigan under 30 points, and then if the Broyles Award-winning offensive line can keep Penix's jersey clean, that's their shot.
So, Marc, switching gears a little bit because we just got some news. I want to go back to the portal conversation, and I want to get your reaction to this because I know you feel strongly on it. Do you get excited because of your disgust with the portal? Do you get excited when your team, the Florida Gators, though, lands a commitment? Because we just saw on social media, to your point, Grayson Pup Howard committed to Florida. This happened 18 minutes ago. He actually posted a graphic with the Gators gear. He's rocking all, he's sitting next to the Gator. You'll see it on social media at some point. Your thoughts on that? Because this is a guy that was a 4-star signee, was highly rated. What's interesting about it is he was a guy
you tell
that,
me, Chris, is he a bust? Is he a bust?
I don't think so. I think he's a talented football player. I think South Carolina fans that are trying to say that he was slow, that he was this, he was that, I mean, that's just people trying to throw salt on a guy who's leaving, but he is a talented football player. Like, I think it is a positive addition, whoever landed him. But he's also a guy that Shane Beamer went on record back in December of 22 and said, Pup Howard texted me and said he would die for this university. So I'm just asking you, like, how do you feel when, because I know you feel very strongly on, say, a Florida State guy transfer to Florida, you don't look at them the same. Do you look at guys that enter from the portal? Do you look at them differently? Do you look at them as mercenaries, as rentals, as I'm like, what's the feeling? Because it's a weird feeling, right? It's almost an icky feeling, if you will.
Here, no, I don't feel great about it, Chris, because the first guy to transfer is the first guy to opt out of your bowl game, is the first guy to transfer again, is the first guy to threaten to sue the NCAA if they don't give him immediate eligibility at his next school. All right. You've heard the phrase once a cheater, always a cheater, once a quitter, always a quitter. I mean, seriously. So I hope he makes my program better. All right. I'm not hopeful that Florida's going to get more than a year of decent play out of him. So I think it's a gross system. I hope he makes my team better. Florida just lost Scooby Williams to the portal at that linebacker position. I hope he makes the team better. I hope he contributes enough to a winning effort to where Billy Napier can save his job in 2024.
And Marc, this is just kind of a side note, but speaking on the portal, I think one of my favorite rants I've ever heard you have, and it's just, it's kind of like you just, there's some friends out there, some people you just like to hear them get riled up because it makes you feel warm and fuzzy inside. I don't know, maybe you're kind of like that for me, but the rant you had about DJ Uiagalelei when he hit the portal and he said forever a Beaver in his statement, and your reaction was probably one of my favorite you ever had. And that just, since we're talking about the portal and asking about this, that's probably one of my favorite rants you've ever had, the forever a Beaver from Uiagalelei, who's now at Florida State. Ironically enough, that Florida State-Clemson game is going to be electric this
Well, let me
season,
tell you,
by
the
the way.
Clemson fans are really trembling about that one, right? They're really trembling about that one, man. No, I think, Chris, that was, how Twitter shows you the analytics? I never had a reply to a tweet that went as viral as that one did. You know what I mean? Normally the tweets that go viral are your own content, right? Not a reply you posted on somebody else's. This was a reply, and I said, forever a Beaver. More like 1 month a Beaver, who's now going to be attending his third school in as many years. The hell out of here. Forever a Beaver. Really. Okay, whatever you say, DJ. You can say this, Chris. I think Florida State downgraded at the quarterback position, right? I mean, I think they got someone who at best is solid. At best is solid. I don't think anyone is trembling about Florida State. I think DJ is going to regret coming to Florida State really quickly when he realizes they're on track for an 8-4 season next year, and he's looking at himself in his mirror in the mirror, and he knows that he's not He's not primarily responsible for them being worse, but he's going to be blamed for them being worse, right? Jordan Travis, where's Jordan Travis? We had Jordan Travis, we were unbeaten. Now we got this guy. They're losing so much, Keon Coleman is not walking through that door. Johnny Wilson is not walking through that door. Many on that offensive line not walking through that door. So I just don't think Florida State's going to be the same team, and he's going to be part of the reason why, but he's going to be blamed as though he's the entire reason why. Does he have any eligibility left after this season, Chris? My money is on him transferring again after this year.
That brings me to my next point too, Marc, because I wanted to talk about that Orange Bowl, that 63-3 slaughtering, and I know you've talked a lot about that game, and you've got thoughts on it. Why, just in regards to what it means for Florida State and for Georgia specifically. But it sounds like you think FSU falls off a cliff next year. Like it was a 1 year they kind of went chips all in on a national title, and that'll be it. I mean, do you think that Florida State falls, I guess, that far? Like they're staring at they're no longer the favorites in the ACC, it sounds like.
No, they're not. Of course they're not. I don't think they fall off a cliff. I think they're about an 8-4, 9-3 team. So they'll be good, not great. And DJ is going to take most of the arrows. Kyle McCord just left Ohio State because he was blamed for what happened to them. He didn't appreciate being blamed. I think DJ is going to be in the exact same spot. And the answer is that they don't have the Jimmies and the Joes. Now, I will forever feel like they were the most screwed over team, one of the most screwed over teams in the history of sports. The 1972 USA men's basketball team played in the semifinal against Russia, Chris. The officials made them replay the ending of that game 3 different times until Russia won. And then that was the one that they counted. And then Team USA didn't show up for its medal, rightfully so. The right move for Florida State was not to show up for its medal. Its medal was the Orange Bowl. That the right move for what was for them not to show up to that game, right? I think in retrospect, if you said, would you rather have not shown up or get this result, that would have been the better result. It has nothing to do with the opponent they had. It has everything to do with how the system jobbed them. But they overachieved with a superstar quarterback, much like Washington has overachieved with a superstar quarterback. I just don't think you can draw anything from that Georgia result. Georgia would beat its own practice squad 63-3. Georgia beat Florida State's practice squad 63-3. Congratulations.
Did Florida State fans, Marc, have a legitimate gripe after watching? Because I saw a lot of it after the Michigan-Alabama game. Alabama loses. Did you come away from that game sort of echoing what FSU fans on social media were saying, that this is proof that the committee got it wrong? This is proof Florida State should have gotten in.
Well, I looked at it, Chris, like you had 2 other unbeaten Power 5 conference champions, and they both won. And, it's amazing to me what the committee prioritizes. You still can't describe to me why Georgia fell to 6. So Chris, like, just follow this argument here. Why did Georgia fall to 6? Georgia fell to 6 because Texas beat Alabama and Alabama beat Georgia. And the committee felt like this is a rule that we have to do, right? I mean, am I wrong? That's why Georgia became the first team ever on the final weekend to fall from number 1 out of the top 4. It only happened because of transitive property. Texas beat Alabama, got to have them in. Alabama beat Georgia, got to have them in. We've got 2 other unbeaten Power 5 conference champions. Why did this? How come a rule wasn't that you have to have Florida State in? Why was that not a rule? Because you followed these other stupid rules where it's like, okay, Georgia lost to them, they lost to them, A beat B, B beat C. We got to have Georgia out of it. They followed other stupid rules, And what we saw was there was a reason that Alabama lost a game. There was a reason that Texas lost a game. They're flawed. They're less flawed than Michigan and Washington. So I think the committee was corrupt, and they're inventing rules as they go along. And Happy New Year to everybody but the College Football Playoff Committee, Chris.
Now, Marc, as you look at the rest of the SEC, some big winners: Missouri over Ohio State, Ole Miss over Penn State, LSU and Tennessee both had nice wins on New Year's Day. What were your biggest takeaways, or was there anything in particular that jumped out to you from the SEC's bowl season? I mean, obviously these bowl games, some of these games happening against shell of teams, but still, you have programs like Ole Miss hit 11 wins, first time in program history. Again, the optics of a Mizzou being in Ohio State. Your just overall thoughts on the SEC bowl season, and was there one thing that jumped out to you?
There is exactly one conference that the SEC does not have a plus 500 bowl record against, Chris. Who is it?
I think I saw you post this, so it's a little bit unfair.
Okay.
So I think you said it was the MAC, correct?
The MAC
Yeah.
is 2-2 against the SEC in bowl games. The SEC has a plus 500 record over everybody else. That's fascinating to me. I'd love to see some more. When's the last time we had a legitimate bowl game between the SEC and the MAC, man? I'd love to see it. Bowl games matter to me. It's clear they don't matter to everyone else anymore. I'm tired of people blaming Florida State because that game didn't matter to them. You've hit them over the head for 10 years with bowl games don't matter. And then you expect them to show up when it matters. That's ridiculous. That is just insane that people would do that to them. The SEC, I was impressed with how Kentucky hung with Clemson. One could make a point Kentucky should have won that game. Okay, well, I mean they led for seemingly a majority of that contest. I was impressed with how that happened. How about this? Clemson has beaten more SEC teams too in the last 5 weeks. Okay, has beaten as many SEC teams too in the last 5 weeks as Ohio State has in the last 33 years. And you wonder why Ryan Day is having a buttocks burn going on right now. You wonder.
Yeah, and I heard your segment yesterday talking about South Carolina fans actually dissing themselves when talking about Clemson's
Oh,
SEC record. That's you made a good
Clemson is
point.
15-7 against the SEC in the last 10 years. Clemson plays 2.2 SEC games per year. 15-7 over the last 10 years, the best 10 years of SEC football history. And I had Gamecock fans telling me, yeah, but most of your wins are over us. Do you guys have any idea what you're saying? Most of your wins are over us. Is that not the problem? Exactly. That is the problem, right? That is the problem.
Marc Ryan of the Fan Upstate. Marc, one last thing before I get you out of here, because for the most part, the dust has settled on the 2023 football season. Obviously, the national title game upcoming Monday. But I'll ask you now, when you look back on the 2023 season, obviously you're in the upstate. It's a lot of South Carolina, a lot of Clemson. But when you think of the 2023 college football season, what will be your biggest takeaway, or what will you remember most, if you will?
That the entire focus from beginning to end was all about the college football playoff and nothing else. And the entire focus all year long, Chris, was for about 8 hours of football that took place between 5 p.m. and 1 a.m. on New Year's Day into January 2nd. And it pains me what we've done to the most beautiful sport. It pains me. All anyone talked about was 2 games, 8 hours of football. Can we please go back to the pre-BCS era, where the Rose Bowl was the Big Ten against the Pac-12, and the Sugar Bowl was SEC, and then you had to have Ohio State knock out Jake Plummer to make the Florida State game mean something. You had to have Texas beat Nebraska in the Big 12 championship game to have it mean something. Because in that era, Chris, for all of us, we knew when the year began, we're not playing in the national championship game, right? Only 2 teams go. We all, oh, what present are we going to get this year? The present was your bowl game. That was the present that you looked forward to. To me, personally, a bowl game counts for more than any game you play in the regular season. But I'm not too big of a moron not to realize that I'm in the serious minority to a population that has been snowed over to believe that these are, quote, meaningless exhibition games. They're not meaningless to a lot of people, man. This was the present that you got for a good season. And if you had a great season, you got to go to a great bowl game. You got to be a great bowl game champion. It saddens me that our whole focus has boiled down to 8 hours. Okay. And I choose, Chris, quantity over quality, because I don't want to see what happened to Florida State happen to anyone else. But now, again, even more, what was unique about college football, it was this brilliant regular season sport where the regular season games were the playoff. Now, even more so, it's all about the playoff, right? And, you're not going to have a single player with a sniff of a chance of making the NFL draft, being drafted, playing in these games anymore. Why even have them? Chris, if you subscribe to anything worth doing is worth doing well, why have bowl games moving forward anymore? Why have them? Because they're football and we'll watch it. I mean, I guess no one's going to be there. No one's going to care. Let's hope that South Carolina can elevate itself to the point where a playoff season is a good season, a great season, and a non-playoff season is a wash. It's a flush. That's where Florida is. That's where Florida's going to be. I'm sad. I'm sad for the direction of college football, man. I really am. You go back and forth between the stages of grief, right? Like you start out in denial and then you have anger and bargaining and acceptance. And I'm working through them, Chris, but I'm not a happy camper, to say the least.
Marc Ryan of the Fan Upstate. Offsides, Marc Ryan every single day, 3 to 7. Marc, you do a fantastic job. Let folks know on social media where they can find you, because I'm sure we'll have a lot of new viewers on this segment specifically today.
Oh yeah, guys, it is great to have you. Thank you so much. I'm on social media at Marc Ryan on air. That's at MARC Ryan on air. I'd love to have you guys follow along. Welcome to the journey. Offsides is a top show in the upstate sports talk, and we're on 3 to 7 p.m. every single day. If you're in the upstate, it's on 97.7 FM and 97.1 FM. And you can always listen to us on the Odyssey app, AUDACY, 3 to 7 p.m. every single day. Happy New Year, Chris. Happy New Year to most of your listeners. Happy New Year to everyone out there listening, except the College Football Playoff Committee. I look forward to being on with you this year, man. Talk soon. Congratulations.
Marc, I appreciate you, man. We'll talk soon. Thank you so much.
Great
right. Stuff, guys. Our good friend Marc Ryan of the Fan Upstate. He's going to join us weekly for Electric Conversation. Really appreciate him taking the time. Guys, that being said, we got a lot to get into. We're going to jump into a quick break. On the other side, how would you rank this year's batch of signal callers in the SEC? I'll go through and rank all 1 through 14, how they fared, and my overall thoughts on all of the SEC quarterbacks. Guys, all that and more on the other side of this break. You're tuned in to SEC Unfiltered Live.
Yo, you think Dallas' Power 4 gonna drop 30 tomorrow?
Why you tripping?
Did you see his mom made a post about going to the game?
What? Hold up. His mama gonna be there?
He's been averaging like 34 points a game when she's there.
At least 40 when she be on that Jumbotron.
He don't like to let his mama down.
Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Cash in on your sports fandom with Prize Picks.
SEC Unfiltered Live is brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. Go download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com. And when you do, use the promo code SECU to receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks is the simplest fantasy game on the market, focused around prop total entries. You pick 2 to 6 players, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry. Prize Picks has no sharks, optimizers, or mass multi-entry. It's literally just you against the projection. They also allow mixed sport entry. So, for example, you can take the over on LeBron, parlay with the under on Mahomes. They've got college sports, pro sports, literally anything and everything you can think of. They have got it over at Prize Picks. They also have a slick, easy-to-use mobile app, both in the App Store and Google Play, and they're rated 4.8 stars in the App Store with rave reviews. So many fans and listeners of SEC Unfiltered have made tons of money with our friends at Prize Picks, and you should as well. So again, go download the Prize Picks app or head over to prizepicks.com, and when you do, use that promo code SECU to receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. We're also brought to you by our friends over at MyBookie. When your money's on the line, choose a trusted sports book that gives you tools to win, like MyBookie. At MyBookie, it doesn't matter if your team is up or down. You can easily cash out or bet the game live to come out on the winning side. Use MyBookie for daily odds boosts, same-game parlays, and take advantage of huge prize pool contests. Every single sack, fumble, and touchdown is another chance to hit payday. To get started, go to mybookie.ag, and on your first deposit, use promo code SECU to grab a deposit match up to $1,000. Try the MyBookie money bag as well to grab a potential Super Bowl frontrunner at long shot odds, plus 38,000 on the Eagles and Chiefs. You won't find odds like that anywhere else. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere, only with MyBookie. Finally, SEC Unfiltered Live is brought to you by our friends over at Roback. Guys, if you haven't heard of Roback before, it's time to check them out. It's safe to say I'd bet on these guys any day of the week because I absolutely love their gear. I couldn't be more pumped to work with Roback. It's simply some of the most comfortable gear that I own. From the performance polos to the hoodies and the joggers, it's some of the best fit and best feel around. Roback's performance hoodies are some of the best pieces of clothing I've ever worn. I can't emphasize how soft these things are with great stretch and breathability. They're simply some of the best hoodies out there. Odds are, guys, if you see me during football season, baseball season, basketball season, or just here on SEC Unfiltered Live, you'll more than likely see me in a Roback hoodie. Secondly, guys, Roback's performance polos, they're some of the most comfortable polos out there. They're moisture wicking with four-way stretch, making them perfect for a game day, and they have the perfect fit. With crisp collars that don't lose their shape, I could not recommend these polos more. In all honesty, guys, Roback's been gaining traction big time. I'm sure you've seen them. They've been working with some of college football's biggest stars, such as Alabama's quarterback Jalen Milroe and former LSU head coach Ed Orgeron. So go check them out now and use the promo code SECU on Roback.com for a generous 20% off your first order. That's spelled RHOBACK.com. 20% off all bottoms, Q-zips, hoodies, and more with the promo code SECU. Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we are back here on this Thursday, January the 4th, 2024. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Want to say thank you yet again to our good friend Marc Ryan of the Fan Upstate for taking the time to chat. And guys, again, like I mentioned, top of the show, why is Marc continuing to come on? He's a national guy. He's a college sports guy. He's a sports guy in general. He's got some Palmetto State flavor, being in Greenville, South Carolina, being with the Fan Upstate. But we can talk about a lot of things outside of just the Gamecocks and the Tigers. And honestly, guys, I just enjoy his conversation. I enjoy the banter. The beauty's in the banter, and it doesn't hurt my feelings when Marc says something negative about South Carolina or anything in the matter. We get into conversation. We get into debate, and it's healthy debate. And that's why Marc Ryan will continue to be on these airwaves. And if you disagree, that's totally fine. But I'm the one running the show, for lack of a better way of putting it. So either way, guys, appreciate you all tuning in. Thank you all so much for the continued love and support. We're going to keep the conversation rolling here on this Thursday as we continue on talking all things SEC. Guys, we had our preseason quarterback rankings over the summer. We then updated those with midseason quarterback rankings, but because I realized I had some major swings and misses in my preseason thoughts. So today, here on today's show, I'm locking in my postseason SEC quarterback rankings. Who were the best signal callers in the best conference in all of college football, guys? We're going to run through this thing from 14 to number 1. So we start at the very bottom. Number 14, Auburn's Peyton Thorne is at the bottom of the list. Guys, you look at his numbers, 1,755 yards passing on this season, 16 passing touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. The Auburn offense, guys, the Auburn passing offense was just never able to really get going. You know, for whatever reason, under Hugh Freeze, who, you know, is a guy that is an offensive guru, if you will. He's fielded fantastic offenses during his coaching tenure. And it felt like the bigger the stage got and the better the defense got, the less you could trust Peyton Thorne. And this isn't just me saying this, guys. This is Auburn people. Our good friend Jake Crane, who's an Auburn guy who comes on this show, he mentioned that many times, right? You simply put could not trust Peyton Thorne. And so I just wonder, is Auburn going to go in the portal? Are they going to go get a quarterback? I think it'd be a mistake not to. But in that battle with Peyton Thorne, Robbie Ashford, whoever else was in the room, it was Peyton Thorne that emerged. Of course, the transfer from, I believe, Michigan State. But I don't know that Auburn really got what they were expecting. In less than 2,000 passing yards, and the offense was just never able to get going. The passing offense being one of the worst in the SEC. Peyton Thorne at number 14 for me. At number 13, Vanderbilt's Ken Seals, which, guys, Ken Seals took over late in the season, or about mid-season, I should say, for A.J. Swan. This was one of Vanderbilt's many issues this past season, was the quarterback position. I think A.J. Swan actually, guys, got thrown under the bus from the sense of, the team is so bad, you got to change something up. Let's just change the quarterback and see if something happens. Ken Seals was not bad, though. Ken Seals was actually pretty good in his limited time. 1,183 yards. Again, guys, you got to think about how many attempts he had. 179 to Peyton Thorne's, for example, 265. So a significant number of less attempts. And in those attempts, over 1,000 yards passing, 11 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. So Ken Seals was actually pretty effective in his time in Nashville. Now we know, guys, of course, he's in the transfer portal, not going to return to Vandy. But I thought Ken Seals did a pretty good job, guys, especially when you factor in what Vandy had this past season. There was no run game. There really was no offensive line to protect. I thought Ken Seals, for all you take into account, was not that bad in Nashville, but he is number 13 on our rankings. At number 12, guys, I've got Mississippi State's Will Rogers. And I don't know if there's a guy that fell more than Will Rogers did this past season. It's not all on him, though, guys. I mean, you look at that Kevin Barbay scheme, that Kevin Barbay system, and, of course, he's no longer there. Zach Arnett's no longer there. And, it's unfortunate, guys, for Will Rogers. And now, of course, Will Rogers has committed to Washington. He's going to go play for the Huskies. Of course, Will Rogers also down the stretch, missing a couple games due to injury. But these numbers, I mean, if I would have told you these numbers, guys, in the preseason, you'd have called me crazy. 1,626 passing yards for Will Rogers, 12 touchdowns to just 4 interceptions. What's even crazier to think is this: of those 1,626 yards, almost 500 came in one game. That was the game earlier in the season at Williams-Brice Stadium against South Carolina. So, there were flashes, there were glimpses, including that game in Columbia where you were like, that's the Will Rogers we all know and love. But a guy that just, unfortunately, I think, guys, because of the changes in scheme and system, we never truly saw the best of him. And, of course, the injuries down the stretch did not help. So, again, at number 12, Will Rogers. At number 11, Texas A&M's Max Johnson, who took over, guys, was put into a tough situation with Connor Wegman, of course, going out really early in the season. 1,452 passing yards for Max Johnson, 9 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. And again, was part of a dysfunctional Jimbo Fisher offense that led to his firing after their win against Mississippi State late in the season. I thought Max Johnson was okay. Nothing special, nothing great, like a lot of these guys down here at the bottom of the list. Certainly the quarterback competition in College Station going to look a lot different next year, right? Because Max Johnson has committed and signed with the North Carolina Tar Heels and Mac Brown. But, Max Johnson, guys, it was a mixed bag, but it wasn't a whole lot of inspiring effort from the Aggie signal caller in 2023. At number 10, I've got Kentucky's Devin Leary. I would say, guys, one of the most disappointing signal callers in the SEC when you factor in preseason expectations and what we thought he could be with that group of wide receivers and the running back room, and just never really lived up to the hype. Now, the final numbers don't look that bad. Devin Leary threw for 2,746 yards, 25 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, right? And he closed out the season in style, that big game against Clemson in the bowl game where the Kentucky offense really popped off. Really the last 2 weeks, that was the best they looked all year, right? The big game against Louisville and then the bowl game. Could not do anything in the final SEC game of the season in Columbia against South Carolina. But for Devin Leary, guys, for most of the season, it was okay. It was ho-hum, but it just never lived up to the expectations that Cat fans had and many fans in the SEC had for Devin Leary. So we saw those flashes late in the year, especially against Louisville and in the bowl game, but just did not live up to the hype and the expectations we had set out. So at number 10, Devin Leary. At number 9, this was another guy that had, again, I had him ranked number 1, believe it or not, in my preseason rankings. Now, his team not being very good, his offensive coordinator not being very good, that played a major role. But it's safe to say that KJ Jefferson, who's ranked at number 9 on this list, I mean, just all preseason hopes and expectations for KJ none of them were met. 2,107 passing yards, 19 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Of course, guys, we all know the running ability, and we saw him with that running ability utilize that. Who can forget the stiff arm on the play against Alabama where he just throws the defender off him? So there were flashes, certainly, where you saw the talent. You saw reasons why we thought he was one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC, if not the best, entering the season. But I think the Dan Enos offense just really wrecked him. And I think KJ Jefferson also, guys, maybe did not take the steps forward that we thought he would, and we did not see the progression from KJ that we expected to see. So, again, preseason number 1 for me, postseason number 9 on this list. At number 8, I've got Tennessee signal caller Joe Milton, who threw for 2,813 yards, 20 touchdowns, only 5 interceptions. So, guys, you look at those numbers. It's not like Joe Milton was terrible, but he just wasn't special, right? He just wasn't special. And I think that's what Tennessee fans were expecting. He was an okay quarterback. He was Joe Milton. He was exactly what you expected him to be if you came into the season with realistic expectations. I was never someone that felt like Joe Milton was going to fill the shoes of Hendon Hooker or replace Hendon Hooker or, God forbid, be better than what Hendon Hooker was. And I think you saw that at different times. Again, it always felt like with Joe Milton, it never was about the throws he was making. It was the throws that he wasn't making. He was the plays that he wasn't making, right? And you saw that throughout this season. And, I think it led to Tennessee's 8-4 record throughout the regular season. And certainly they're really excited for what the Nico era is going to bring and what type of player he can be. But Joe Milton, I think 8 is fitting, just sort of a middle-of-the-pack type of quarterback, and that's why he falls at number 8 on our list. At number 7, we go to Columbia. I've got Gamecocks quarterback Spencer Rattler, who threw for 3,186 yards, 19 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. There may not be a player on this list who was more important to his team than Spencer Rattler was this past season. My biggest knock on Rattler is this, guys. You look down the stretch, right? You look down the stretch. When the going got tough and the competition stiffened up at home, because I think the stat I read was 17 of Spencer Rattler's 19 passing touchdowns were at Williams-Brice Stadium. 17 or 19. That's crazy when you think about it. But when the going got tough late in the season, right, you're able to beat Kentucky, but it's a woeful offensive performance. And then the Clemson game, you literally are held off of the scoreboard when it comes to passing touchdowns, and you're just simply not able to muster anything when it comes offensively. You did have the one trick play touchdown. Luke Doty scored for South Carolina late in that game, but no passing touchdowns for Spencer Rattler. The numbers were less than inspiring, and you got beat by a Clemson team that did not even score an offensive touchdown in their own right. Also, guys, it was a tale of two dudes when you talk about home and road splits. I mean, Spencer Rattler on the road, it was like a different player. And again, a lot of his struggles and a lot of his woes were due to the team around him. But when you look at the numbers and you boil it down to it, 19 TDs, 8 interceptions, believe it or not, guys, Spencer Rattler's 2023 season statistically was very similar to 2022. It wasn't all that different, right? So this is not a how valuable were you to your team rankings, because if that's what it was, I would say he'd probably be number 1 or number 2 on this list. What this is just a postseason grade of all of the quarterbacks and what they did this year. I put Spencer Rattler at number 7. And the bottom line is this, guys. He led a 5-7 South Carolina football team. Was all of it his fault? No. But I think it would be a mistake to not put some of the blame on QB1 in Columbia, just like all these other guys catch accountability as well. At number 6, we go to Gainesville, and I got Florida quarterback Graham Mertz. Guys, one of the biggest reasons, I know there'll be pushback from Gamecock fans. Listen to these numbers. 2,903 yards for Graham Mertz, 20 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and oh, by the way, he beat Spencer Rattler on his home field this past season. I think Graham Mertz, he's a guy that's very, very easy to disrespect. He's a guy that I had ranked dead last in my preseason quarterback rankings that came out over the summer. But guys, those numbers right there, 20 touchdowns to 3 picks. I mean, I don't think there was a better quarterback in the league when it comes to touchdown to interception ratio, or at least he was one of the best in the SEC. Overachieved all preseason expectations. Again, with a team, a supporting cast that wasn't great. It was okay. He had 2 very good running backs, but it wasn't great by any means. I thought Graham Mertz was really impressive for Florida. Again, he overachieved vastly. Of course, the Gators did not make a bowl game, fell from 5-2 to 5-7, losing 5 in a row. But Graham Mertz did all he could for that football team. And again, those numbers are wildly impressive, especially compared to what I thought he would be this season. So at number 6, I've got Graham Mertz. At number 5, we got a Como. I've got Brady Cook. And you can't say enough good things, guys, about what Brady Cook did. 3,317 yards, 21 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. The numbers aren't necessarily gaudy, if you will. I think you also have to factor in what Brady Cook did with his legs this season, keeping plays alive. But I put Brady Cook in my top 5 because, you know, did he have a really good football team around him? Yes, he did. Did he have good receivers? Yes. Did he have Cody Schrader toting the rock? Yes, he did. The offensive line was fantastic. The defense was stingy. But you got to have that trigger man. Missouri does not win 11 games this year. Missouri does not have the type of season they had without Brady Cook. Let's give Brady Cook his roses. Let's give credit to Brady Cook. Let's not say, well, he's a game manager. He's just – no. He is the guy orchestrating everything. And when you look at 2 guys, this was a dude that was doubted. People saying that, man, I don't even think he should be QB1 for Missouri. He's not good enough to be QB1. And then he has this type of season, orchestrating that thing, leading that thing. You got to give Brady Cook credit, man. At number 5, easily top 5 quarterback for me in the SEC. What he did this year for MIZ will live on in infamy. At number 4, guys, to Tuscaloosa we go. I got Alabama quarterback Jalen Milroe. Final numbers for Jalen: 2,834 yards, 23 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Of course, guys, his best work, though, came on the ground, running the football, and became such a valuable asset and such a dynamic player. Beat Georgia in the SEC championship. Guys, I don't think that game against Michigan takes anything away. You got to give a lot of credit to Michigan's defense and what they were able to do to slow him down. But when Alabama and when Tommy Rees catered the game plan to his skill set, you saw the best of Jalen Milroe. You really did. Now, he's got to take some steps forward. He's got to take some steps forward when it comes to throwing the football and reading defenses and just being a better overall player. But the way that Jalen Milroe was able to overcome adversity, gets benched in that USF game, stays positive, stays optimistic, then gets put back in the lineup, and Bama's off and running from that point. I think, again, you got to give that kid a lot of credit. And I think the dynamic nature of Jalen Milroe, that's what made him so dangerous this year. And he comes in at number 4 on our list. At number 3, I got Ole Miss signal caller Jackson Dart. 3,364 yards passing, 23 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. What he did with his legs also, guys. This kid was a freaking warrior all year long. Leads Ole Miss to their first 11-win season in program history. And a guy in Jackson Dart that Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss, they brought guys in to be his replacement last year. Spencer Sanders from Oklahoma State. Walker Howard from LSU. Like, they brought in dudes to fight for that job with him and beat him out. And Jackson Dart rose to the occasion, had his best season down there in Oxford. And again, you lead your program to unprecedented heights like he did. I mean, it goes without saying the type of year Jackson Dart had. Again, that is for that reason he falls number 3 on our list. And number 2, guys, I got Georgia quarterback Carson Beck. I think one of the most underrated players this year in college football. 3,941 passing yards, 24 passing touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Yes, he had a great team around him. But all Carson Beck and the Georgia offense did was damn near set records when it comes to the passing offense. They were one of the best offenses in all of college football. And again, you got to have that trigger man. Everybody was wondering, how do you replace Stetson Bennett? Can you replace Stetson Bennett with someone? We knew Carson Beck had more talent. The question was he going to be able to fill in that role, be that leader that Georgia needed, fill in the shoes, if you will, of a Stetson Bennett, who's one of the best quarterbacks in SEC history, I think, for what he did on the field in Athens. Carson Beck's 2023 season gets slept on way too hard. I mean, 72% completion percentage, guys. like I mentioned, just under 4,000 yards. So Carson Beck, what he did for Georgia, guiding a 13-1 Dogs team, and a Dogs team that I think we could argue we would have at minimum just loved to have seen got a shot in the college football playoff. And of course, he will return in 2024. And guys, at number 1 on my postseason SEC quarterback rankings, how about the Heisman Trophy winner himself, Jayden Daniels, who threw for 3,812 yards, 40 passing touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. And guys, when you look at the rushing numbers as well, he led the LSU Tigers in rushing. He was 3rd in the SEC overall in rushing. 1,134 yards. Guys, Jayden Daniels, when you look at the numbers, he averaged a first down every time he touched the football. He averaged over 10 yards per carry, 10 yards per touch, whether it be throwing, it be rushing. He averaged over 10 yards per existence on a football field. He was a walking first down, literally and figuratively. And when you talk about players that meant so much to their football team, you could argue, guys, nobody meant more than Jayden Daniels, right? We talked about Spencer Rattler and what he meant. But guys, when you look at Jayden Daniels and that LSU team and what that LSU team would have been without Jayden Daniels, and then you look at the numbers, there's a reason the guy won the Heisman. He's easily number 1 on this list. He meant more to LSU. I mean, what is LSU football this year without Jayden Daniels? I know Garrett Nussmeier looked good in the bowl game. I totally get that. That's great. But guys, there's no way that football team wins 9 games in the regular season if they don't have 5 under center. So, Jayden Daniels, number 1, the Heisman Trophy winner, and number 1 on my list of postseason SEC quarterbacks. Guys, we're going to jump into a quick break. On the other side, we're talking Michigan and Washington as I'll preview, predict, and break down the national title game that's upcoming next Monday. Guys, all that and more on the other side of this break. You're tuned in to SEC Unfiltered Live.
Yo, you think Dallas' Power 4 gonna drop 30 tomorrow?
Boy, you tripping.
Did you see his mom made a post about going to the game?
What? Hold up. His mama gonna be there?
He's been averaging like 34 points a game when she's there.
At least 40 when she be on that Jumbotron.
He don't like to let his mama down.
Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Cash in on your sports fandom with Prize Picks.
SEC Unfiltered Live is brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. Go download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com. And when you do, use the promo code SECU to receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks is the simplest fantasy game on the market, focused around prop total entries. You pick 2 to 6 players, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry. Prize Picks has no sharks, optimizers, or mass multi-entry. It's literally just you against the projection. They also allow mixed sport entries. So, for example, you can take the over on LeBron, parlay with the under on Mahomes. They've got college sports, pro sports, literally anything and everything you can think of. They have got it over at Prize Picks. They also have a slick, easy-to-use mobile app, both in the App Store and Google Play, and they're rated 4.8 stars in the App Store with rave reviews. So many fans and listeners of SEC Unfiltered have made tons of money with our friends at Prize Picks, and you should as well. So again, go download the Prize Picks app or head over to prizepicks.com, and when you do, use that promo code SECU to receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. We're also brought to you by our friends over at MyBookie. When your money's on the line, choose a trusted sports book that gives you tools to win, like MyBookie. At MyBookie, it doesn't matter if your team is up or down. You can easily cash out or bet the game live to come out on the winning side. Use MyBookie for daily odds boosts, same-game parlays, and take advantage of huge prize pool contests. Every single sack, fumble, and touchdown is another chance to hit payday. To get started, go to mybookie.ag, and on your first deposit, use promo code SECU to grab a deposit match up to $1,000. Try the MyBookie money bag as well to grab a potential Super Bowl frontrunner at long shot odds, plus 38,000 on the Eagles and Chiefs. You won't find odds like that anywhere else. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere, only with MyBookie. Finally, SEC Unfiltered Live is brought to you by our friends over at Roback. Guys, if you haven't heard of Roback before, it's time to check them out. It's safe to say I'd bet on these guys any day of the week because I absolutely love their gear. I couldn't be more pumped to work with Roback. It's simply some of the most comfortable gear that I own. From the performance polos to the hoodies and the joggers, it's some of the best fit and best feel around. Roback's performance hoodies are some of the best pieces of clothing I've ever worn. I can't emphasize how soft these things are with great stretch and breathability. They're simply some of the best hoodies out there. Odds are, guys, if you see me during football season, baseball season, basketball season, or just here on SEC Unfiltered Live, you'll more than likely see me in a Roback hoodie. Secondly, guys, Roback's performance polos, they're some of the most comfortable polos out there. They're moisture wicking with 4-way stretch, making them perfect for a game day, and they have the perfect fit. With crisp collars that don't lose their shape, I could not recommend these polos more. In all honesty, guys, Roback's been gaining traction big time. I'm sure you've seen them. They've been working with some of college football's biggest stars, such as Alabama's quarterback Jalen Milroe and former LSU head coach Ed Orgeron. So go check them out now and use the promo code SECU on Roback.com for a generous 20% off your first order. That's spelled RHOBACK.com. 20% off all bottoms, Q-zips, hoodies, and more with the promo code SECU. Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we are back here on this Thursday, January 4th, 2024. Appreciate you all tuning in. Thank you all so much for the continued love and support. Got a lot to discuss, guys. A lot to get into. Continue to leave us your questions, your comments, your voicemails as well. We will get to those end of show in our daily mailbag segment. In the meantime, guys, we talk national championship game as Michigan and Washington are set to do battle for the ultimate prize. Monday, January the 8th, 7:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN at NRG Stadium in Houston, Texas. Michigan currently is a 4.5-point favorite. The over-under is set at 55.5. And as you look at this game, guys, the top storylines in this one, both of these teams are going for the first national title in quite some time. Michigan hasn't won one since 1997. And Washington, you got to go all the way back to 1991 for the last time the Huskies won the ultimate prize. And Michigan, guys, especially, I mean, you're talking about the winningest program in college football that has not won a national title in, 27 years? It'll be 27 years in the making if they can get the job done. So, and again, for Washington, like I mentioned, in quite some time, 33 years for them, if my math stands correct there as well. So a lot on the line for both these programs. And guys, with the expanded playoff, I think both will expect to be back more often than not, but still, you never know when you're going to have this opportunity again. So I think both are desperate to end their national title droughts. And what's so exciting about this game too, guys, you look at it, it's just two completely different styles, right? You've got the Michigan run game, the defense. When I think of Michigan, I think, big bruisers, physicality, winning in the trenches, that not necessarily 3 yards in a cloud of dust, because that offense is really good, but it's a lot of run game with Blake Corum. J.J. McCarthy is solid, not great. It's more of a pro-style type of scheme, pro-style type of offense. Then you look at Washington. It is an electric factory when it comes to offense. The spread them out, what Michael Penix Jr. does, guys, in the passing game. I mean, you saw him in that game against Texas. Over 400 yards passing. It's this high-flying offense. They've been winning games with offense, and they are good defensively. Don't get me wrong, but it does feel like two very different styles, two contrasting styles in this football game. And I think what's fascinating, guys, is, offense, offense, offense. That's what runs college football now, right? Does the old phrase, defense wins championships, does it still apply? Right? We heard that for years growing up as a kid. And we just heard that for years, about football. Defense wins championships. And lately it's like, does it really? I mean, does it still? Does defense win championships? Or is it about who can outscore the other, which is sometimes what it feels like in college football? So two contrasting styles. Which one plays better on Monday night? On that note, guys, my question is this. How in the world does Michigan slow down Michael Penix Jr.? How? Because you watch him against Texas and all throughout the season. Again, guys, it's like video game numbers. It's video game numbers this dude is putting up. And you think about his journey, you think about his story, right? And it's incredible coming from Indiana, all the season-ending injuries, if you will, and what he's done at Washington, and now this special season here. When you go into a game like this, Michigan's favored, right? Everybody's making their picks, what have you, and I'll do so in just a second. But, man, it is really, really difficult to bet against a guy who's in a zone like Michael Penix Jr. is this season. I mean, that dude is on a different level, right? When it comes to his level of play and what he's been able to do to opposing defenses. And I mean, just watching that Texas game was insane. Watching that Texas game was incredible. He can make all the throws. He can move in the pocket. He can fit it in tight windows. He can throw from different arm angles. There's literally nothing Michael Penix Jr. cannot do. He'll have his stiffest test yet against that Michigan defense. Speaking of Michigan, guys, we watched, of course, that Rose Bowl. Can Michigan clean up their special team mistakes? I don't think you beat Washington making those type of mistakes on special teams. You don't win a national championship if you're making those type of mistakes. Can they get that cleaned up and just take care of the fundamentals, right? I mean, the fact Michigan was able to overcome it was astounding. I mean, it was incredible that did not hinder them in the end. They were still able to win that football game. But you got to think that's something Jim Harbaugh, that coaching staff, they'll be locked in on this week, right? They'll be focused in on is taking care of the little things, right? Just focus on the little things. You got the big things, I think, for the most part handled, but it's those little things that become big things. You cannot have special teams be a deficiency again, because you will not be able to get away with it. It's not physical mistakes either. It's mental mistakes. Can Michigan clean up those mental mistakes? Guys, can Michigan turn their chip on their shoulder into a national title? I mean, that's a big thing. I talked about Michael Penix Jr., the chip on the shoulder he has. This is a Washington team and program that's been doubted time and time and time again. I think they earned a lot of respect after that game against Texas, if folks did not have it already. I think, again, they're underdogs yet again, right? They've been the underdog story all season long, right? And they come into this game as underdogs. How does that affect, I don't think we should spend a lot of time, or it's really fair to talk about motivation factor or level of excitement. If you can't get excited for this one, I mean, you need to be doing something else, right? You should be doing something else. Can they turn that chip on their shoulder into a national title? That Washington is just playing with house money here in this one. They've been doubted all year, and I can't wait to see how it unfolds, guys. And finally, there's this narrative that many are pushing that I do think is interesting, though, because I talked about in Michigan and Alabama, people had to decide in the college football world, okay, who are they going to pull for, right? Like, who's the lesser of the two evils? A lot of people hate Alabama, and a lot of people hate Michigan because what has happened this year, and for reasons beyond that as well. Now you look at this game, and it really does have that good versus evil type of feel to it, where it's like you've got the Michigan Wolverines and their head coach and Jim Harbaugh, who's been suspended a couple of times, and the whole Connor Stallions thing and the stealing signs, and, they're undefeated and this, that, whatever. It feels like Michigan is this evil empire of sorts. And then you got Washington, who is this feel-good story, right? There's this great story with Michael Penix Jr. at quarterback, and they're the underdog. They've been doubted all year long, and they just found a way to get it done. You know, they were doubted in their conference title game. They were doubted in the college football playoff. They're being doubted yet again. So it's good versus evil when Michigan and Washington square off. Who wins out in this one? That is the question. Now, time to lock in a prediction. The national title game, right? And like I mentioned, I wonder who the college football world is pulling for. I feel like unless you're a Michigan fan, everyone's pulling for Washington because of what happened with Michigan off the field this year. And give Michigan credit, they've been able to use that to their advantage this season. Now, with that being said, it is so difficult. It's so difficult to bet against a guy like Michael Penix Jr., man. As good as he's been all throughout this season, putting up video game numbers and just leading his team. I mean, what he's able to do, it's been incredible to watch. I thought Texas's physicality would give Washington some issues. It did not. They didn't even lay a hand on him, it seemed like. Michigan's defensive front, I think, is a step up. Can Michigan clean up, though, the little mistakes, the special team mistakes? Can J.J. McCarthy play a better game? I don't think he was all that great against Alabama, right? They're going to have to lean on Blake Corum again. J.J. McCarthy will have to be better. Does defense still win championships? That's my question going into this one. Or is it all about who's got the best offense? The team with the best offense who can outscore everybody, who has the best quarterback, that's who wins the title. I think this is going to be a classic, guys. I think this is a fun back-and-forth ball game. I really do. It certainly has that good versus evil feel to it. But, you know, guys, sometimes evil wins. And this season has honestly felt like Michigan is this team of destiny. And I know many in the college football world will be pulling for Washington, the underdog story, but I do think it's the favorite, the Michigan Wolverines. That will win it all. I think they'll have just enough. I think you're going to see the Michigan offense actually rise to the occasion. And, you know, based off what the numbers say and what Washington averages, I think Michigan will keep them in check just enough. I still think Michael Penix Jr., you can only limit him so much. But I think Michigan edges out Washington to win the national championship. I think effectively Jim Harbaugh is going to sail off in the sunset because I don't think he wants anything to do with what the NCAA is going to be chasing him down for. Either way, though, I think Michigan, I think they get the job done. They are my pick in this game. Lock me in. Give me Wolverines 30, Washington 28. I think it's a really, really fun back-and-forth game. It is so hard for me to pick against Michael Penix Jr. because of what he's been this season. But, guys, again, it feels like Michigan is that team of destiny. As much as we hate to say it, it feels like they're that team of destiny. And I think they will get the job done in this one. Final score, Michigan 30, Washington 28. Guys, we're going to keep the conversation rolling because we have so much to discuss. We're probably going to have to move back our NCAA football wish list to tomorrow because that's how much we have to talk about. Because big news just before the show, Ole Miss running back Quinshon Judkins officially entering the transfer portal. And guys, you look at his numbers in 2 seasons at Ole Miss, 2,725 rushing yards, 5 yards per carry, and 31 touchdowns. To his credit, also had 281 receiving yards, 7.6 yards per reception, and 3 receiving touchdowns as well. He is now in the transfer portal. And we talked about Lane Kiffin being this portal king, but even the king gets knocked down every now and then as Judkins, the RB1 for Ole Miss, has hit the portal officially. Now, he's an impact player, legit RB1. This guy is a legit RB1. I think what you're seeing, though, here, guys, and I talked to some of our Ole Miss folks just before we went live. And they talked about the situation is fluid. So he could return to Ole Miss, right? The situation is fluid. And NIL, as you'd imagine, is playing a major, major role in this because obviously playing time's not, right? Quinshon Judkins is the guaranteed RB1 at Ole Miss. But, guys, it's managing your salary cap. It's about managing what you're paying out, and you're not going to pay a ridiculous number for one player, especially, guys, when it's a running back. I think what you're seeing, too, here, guys, the running back position over the last few years, as we've seen in the NFL, it's been devalued, right? The running back position doesn't mean what it once did. I think in a situation like this with Quinshon Judkins, again, you got to, guys, unfortunately, you have to take the professional sports mindset when looking at college football and this whole portal thing and NIL. You're not going to overpay for a running back. Running backs come and go. Running backs grow on trees. You can go get another one. Just go get another one. If you've got the offensive line especially, and you've got the offensive mind, guys, you can find a capable running back. If you're recruiting even halfway worth a damn, you've probably got somebody on your roster. I'm not saying they're all built like Quinshon Judkins, but you've probably got somebody on your roster who's ready to go. So I think you got to think about it this way. The running back position is devalued, right? Quinshon Judkins, for as good as he's been, is replaceable. And if a guy like that, even for a program like Ole Miss, who is obviously very well off when it comes to NIL, if Quinshon Judkins comes and asks for an amount that's unreasonable, you say no. You weigh a cost-benefit analysis. If it's not worth it, you say no. Now, our good friend Barrett Salee has since posted programs that, or landing spots that are possible for Quinshon Judkins. A couple of those being the Auburn Tigers, the Alabama Crimson Tide, the Clemson Tigers, and the Miami Hurricanes. Oh, by the way, Ole Miss as well. Like I mentioned, our Ole Miss folks saying it is a fluid situation. It's tied directly to NIL and what Quinshon Judkins is asking. Now, Lane Kiffin's on a boat somewhere in the middle of the ocean. I don't think he's all that concerned with Quinshon Judkins in the portal. What does it mean for Ole Miss? Guys, again, like I mentioned, is there another Quinshon Judkins on the roster? I don't know if there is. Because you look at the numbers, guys. Back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, 1,158 yards this past season, 4.3 yards per carry, 15 rushing touchdowns. Got off to a little bit of a slow start, but certainly he's a highly valuable player. But I think Ole Miss is going to be fine. I think Ole Miss is going to be just fine for what they've done in the portal. They've got plenty of weapons on the offensive side. And if there's anybody out there that's going to go out there, and if they need to replace somebody, if there's anybody out there that can go replace and plug holes via the portal, it's a guy like Lane Kiffin. I mean, we've seen it literally all offseason. So the portal giveth, the portal taketh, and we're seeing the portal take as Quinshon Judkins is now on the market. Guys, we're going to jump into a quick break. On the other side, I want to open it up for all of your questions, your comments, your voicemails, your thoughts on everything happening today in the world of college football, SEC sports, all that and more, guys, on the other side of this break. You're tuned in to SEC Unfiltered Live.
Yo, you think Dallas' Power 4 gonna drop 30 tomorrow?
Boy, you tripping.
Did you see his mom made a post about going to the game?
What? Hold up. His mama gonna be there?
He's been averaging like 34 points a game when she's there.
At least 40 when she be on that Jumbotron.
He don't like to let his mama down.
Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Cash in on your sports fandom with Prize Picks.
SEC Unfiltered Live is brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. Go download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com. And when you do, use the promo code SECU to receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks is the simplest fantasy game on the market, focused around prop total entries. You pick 2 to 6 players, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry. Prize Picks has no sharks, optimizers, or mass multi-entry. It's literally just you against the projection. They also allow mixed sport entry. So, for example, you can take the over on LeBron, parlay with the under on Mahomes. They've got college sports, pro sports, literally anything and everything you can think of. They have got it over at Prize Picks. They also have a slick, easy-to-use mobile app, both in the App Store and Google Play, and they're rated 4.8 stars in the App Store with rave reviews. So many fans and listeners of SEC Unfiltered have made tons of money with our friends at Prize Picks, and you should as well. So again, go download the Prize Picks app or head over to prizepicks.com, and when you do, use that promo code SECU to receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. We're also brought to you by our friends over at MyBookie. When your money's on the line, choose a trusted sports book that gives you tools to win, like MyBookie. At MyBookie, it doesn't matter if your team is up or down. You can easily cash out or bet the game live to come out on the winning side. Use MyBookie for daily odds boosts, same-game parlays, and take advantage of huge prize pool contests. Every single sack, fumble, and touchdown is another chance to hit payday. To get started, go to mybookie.ag, and on your first deposit, use promo code SECU to grab a deposit match up to $1,000. Try the MyBookie money bag as well to grab a potential Super Bowl frontrunner at long shot odds, plus 38,000 on the Eagles and Chiefs. You won't find odds like that anywhere else. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere, only with MyBookie. Finally, SEC Unfiltered Live is brought to you by our friends over at Roback. Guys, if you haven't heard of Roback before, it's time to check them out. It's safe to say I'd bet on these guys any day of the week because I absolutely love their gear. I couldn't be more pumped to work with Roback. It's simply some of the most comfortable gear that I own. From the performance polos to the hoodies and the joggers, it's some of the best fit and best feel around. Roback's performance hoodies are some of the best pieces of clothing I've ever worn. I can't emphasize how soft these things are with great stretch and breathability. They're simply some of the best hoodies out there. Odds are, guys, if you see me during football season, baseball season, basketball season, or just here on SEC Unfiltered Live, you'll more than likely see me in a Roback hoodie. Secondly, guys, Roback's performance polos, they're some of the most comfortable polos out there. They're moisture wicking with four-way stretch, making them perfect for a game day, and they have the perfect fit. With crisp collars that don't lose their shape, I could not recommend these polos more. In all honesty, guys, Roback's been gaining traction big time. I'm sure you've seen them. They've been working with some of college football's biggest stars, such as Alabama's quarterback Jalen Milroe and former LSU head coach Ed Orgeron. So go check them out now and use the promo code SECU on Roback.com for a generous 20% off your first order. That's spelled RHOBACK.com. 20% off all bottoms, Q-zips, hoodies, and more with the promo code SECU. Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we are back here on this Thursday, January the 4th, 2024. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in as we begin our daily mailbag segments. We will go break free for the final 20 minutes or so, taking your questions, your comments, and your voicemails. Let's see. Going back through your questions. Again, guys, appreciate you all tuning in. Cody says he wouldn't be surprised if Quinshon Judkins ended back at Ole Miss. Wright and Sampson did this at Tennessee. It's all business. Apparently, yeah, the number he had, though, was too high, Cody. So I guess it depends on how much he likes Ole Miss. I mean, the question I have of would he actually leave, and he's entered the portal, no question. But, I guess for the player, you got to weigh your situation versus finances, what you can get, what you should take, etc. So, Billy Cotton, NIL is going to ruin college football, end up being semi-pro the way that it is going. I've said this, Billy, before, and I'll say it again. The business of college football has never been better. The business of college football has never been better. For the programs, from the content perspective, it's never been better. For the die-hard fan of these individual schools, college football has never been worse. Because you lose out on things that die-hard fans love about the game. Loyalty, tradition, having guys on campus 3, 4, 5 years, developing those guys, building relationships with those guys. A lot of things that the die-hard fan loved about the way college football was are gone, right? Amateurism is completely dead in college football. And John Edward, most are probably like you. I will continue to watch no matter what he says. People can say they're not going to watch. What are you going to do? What are people going to do that don't watch college football? Like, what are you going to do? Let's see. Ethan K. Daniels will probably be top 5, top 3. Top 5, probably top 3, but it's all said and done. Caleb's good, but he has a bust written all over. You're talking about the NFL draft. Okay. Octavian says, can't wait till NCAA 2024. Same here. He says, go Gators, love the show. Octavian, I appreciate you tuning in, man. Appreciate you tuning in, my friend. Really good stuff. Glad to have you. Ethan K, 2 great playoff teams for 4 pretty equal teams. I'd say they did get it right. Florida teams should be used to getting snubbed. Bruce says, what happened to the Vanderbilt wide receiver that was going to transfer to South Carolina? You're talking about the kid went to Boston College, whatever his name was. Jaden McGowan, right? Yeah, went to Boston College. Let's see. Going back earlier in the show, getting your questions, guys. Guys, in case you missed it too, Pup Howard, South Carolina transfer, has officially committed to Florida. How about that? So transfer portal madness continues. Transfer portal madness continues. Again, guys, appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Thank you all so much for the continued love and support, guys. We'll go ahead and jump into this, by the way, since the questions are kind of slow, and this is a short segment anyways. So the big news today, Brandon Marcello, our good friend who actually has joined the show before, Marcello of 24/7 Sports, confirming that on Monday's national championship game or during that time slot or whatever, maybe on Monday, there will be details, though, released in regards to NCAA football 2024, the new video game. And I was just sitting here thinking, guys, my wish list for things that I want to see on the new NCAA football that the game has got to have. It better have. It hopefully is going to have. There's so much pressure, too, on this game to be good, right? There's so much pressure on this game to be good. First thing, all the new uniform sets. You got to have the unis right? And I'm talking everything from the helmets, the jerseys, the cleats, the socks, all of it. Get the unis in there for all these teams. Updated stadiums. My goodness. Make sure that the stadiums are updated. that they look how they look in real life. Maybe we get some surrounding area, right? Maybe some surrounding area of the stadiums. But make sure everything in each individual stadium, the attention to detail is correct. Updated entrances. That was something the old NCAA football did. You didn't really have that. I think if you could incorporate entrances into the game, right? You had some things. You had Clemson touching Howard's Rock and running down the hill. You had Notre Dame hitting the play like a champion today sign. I think you may have had LSU hitting the bar, maybe. But you didn't have enough, right? Let's get entrances. Let's get Inner Sandman in there. Let's get 2001 at South Carolina in there. Let's get running with the out of Colorado, running with the Buffalo. Let's get that in there. Let's get Tennessee running through the T, right? Updated entrances. The transfer portal, it's got to be in the game. And I don't know how they're going to do it. I don't know how. Imagine you're playing a dynasty and your top player hits the portal because of NIL. NIL's also going to be in the game. That's got to be in the game, right? So you got to have transfer portal. You got to have NIL. It'll be madness, but it'll be funny. It'll honestly be a fun part of the experience because that's what college football is now, right? Also, I think updating recruiting, reflecting, I don't know who they're going to use in regards to recruiting rankings or whatever, but I think that would be really cool, right? If you could have the real recruiting classes maybe uploaded to the game, or the recruiting was always a really fun part of the game, right? The last couple, especially when they started to make that more of a thing. Guys, expanded playbooks, another thing I want to see, making sure you have all types of offenses, right? All types of offense, all types of plays, more trick plays, more unique plays. Guys, something from the old games I'd love to see come back. The crowd meter. The way you used to be able to pump up the crowd, and I'm talking the old NCAA, I think that was like 07, when you tap L2 on PlayStation, and your guy would be there pumping the crowd up, and the screen would start shaking, and the crowd meter would keep going up and up and up. That was awesome. That was awesome. I think bringing back the crowd meter would be cool. In the zone for an individual player. Remember when you said the player, you had the little, the white circle underneath, and it would blink when the player was in the zone. I think that would be cool. Guys, a big one too. The pregame presentation. I talked about the stadium, the surrounding area. You used to have college game day. I think having the pregame presentation used to show guys getting ready for warm-ups, and the pregame presentation, honestly, as the NCAA games went on, it got worse and worse. I mean, I think back again in mid-2000s when you'd be showing individual players or guys warming up, and you'd have Lee Corso putting the headgear on. That was so cool. Bring back some cool pregame presentation for the game. And finally, guys, I would say, God, make Heisman mode playable. I get it. You want it to be the hardest version, if you will. I understand it's the most difficult setting, but dude, Heisman just wasn't even fun. Or figure out a level between Heisman and All-American, because Heisman was literally unplayable at times. So when it comes to the new game, what are you guys looking forward to? Is anything in particular? Road to Glory, certainly. That's another one. Road to Glory has to be in the game. I'm not a huge gamer, guys. But there are two game modes that I can play for hours on end. Road to the Show and MLB The Show, and Road to Glory in NCAA football. Those are two that so much fun. So it's going to be exciting to get details on the game on Monday night, or Monday in general. And I'm looking forward to it. Cannot wait for the game to come out. Cannot freaking wait. So anyways, guys, appreciate the love. Appreciate the support. 843-790-3377. That's 843-790-3377 here on this Thursday. Again, thank you all so much for the continued love and support. Let's see. Ethan K says, think people are more interested in their team in the game than their team in real life, to be honest. I mean, again, Ethan, there's so much pressure on that game to be good. And I agree, Brewer Nation, don't make it like Madden. Don't make it a college version of Madden. I don't think they will. I mean, again, Brewer Nation, like, this would be the most disappointing flop in probably like the history of video games if it's a flop. It really would. It really would. Be one of the biggest flops. So. Let's see. That Quinshon Judkins news was surprising. That was very, very, very surprising. So, but, you know, I mean, again, in this in this day and age, man, it just where it's all about you know, and I get it. It's all about chasing the bag. It is what it is. So anyways. Yeah, it'll be the biggest game ever sold for sure. Yeah. No doubt. No doubt. Billy Cotton, his pick for the national title, Michigan 35, Washington 33. Very good. Yeah, I think it's going to be a great game. I mean, truly, I do wonder how Michael Penix Jr. and that Washington offense is able to withstand the Michigan defense. You know, I wonder how they're able to withstand that, but it does unfortunately feel like Michigan is that team of destiny. It's, you know, admittedly, guys, too, I'll say this. It's weird there not being an SEC team in there. Like, I mean, it's the first time in a long time. No SEC team in the national championship. It's a weird vibe, no doubt. It's a weird vibe, no doubt, but it's just where we are. So it's just where we are. Obviously, Bama going down. Would have loved nothing more than to break down and preview an SEC national championship, but that did not happen. Kakituan, Chris, do you feel like your daily lives have gotten bigger since the switch? Yeah, I think so. I think so. I mean, Kakituan, we're certainly doing much bigger numbers on YouTube as a whole than we did previously. You know, Kakituan, admittedly, with the business movement, I mean, I knew there would be an adjustment. There may be a step or two back in the short term for an unlimited amount of steps forward in the long term. And Kakituan, I mentioned that, you know, the day of the launch, and it was something that I was more than happy to embrace, and I have embraced. I mean, listen, I'll be transparent with you guys. Like, we've seen great success and an overwhelming amount of support on social media. I mean, X, and we've gained a bunch of new following too. It's been really, really cool seeing all these fans and different fan bases come on the show and follow along and comment. And, you know, X, we lost a couple followers, then already surpassed that. Facebook, same thing. Instagram, admittedly, is the big one that we lost about 600 followers on Instagram. Instagram folks were not very thrilled about the rebrand, the relaunch. Still a lot of people. I mean, we're just under 34,000 followers on IG, so it's not like we're hurting, but there were about 600 people that we lost about 600 followers. But you know, I tell you this, Cocky Twan, have we seen the daily lives get bigger and the content get bigger? Absolutely. Absolutely. Because admittedly, man, I mean, how do I put this nicely? When South Carolina started stinking this year, right, people checked out. The numbers on the live plummeted. They did. Bottom line, they plummeted, right? Because South Carolina was not good. So I refuse to tie my business interests and time and attach my ceiling as a content creator and as an entrepreneur to, well, this team has to win for anybody to care. You see what I'm saying? I'm just not doing that. That's a foolish venture. So, yeah, to your point, Kaki Twan, I mean, again, that's why, though, we went ahead and got the launch out now. We've got basketball season. We got baseball season. We got a full preseason. Then by next football season, we're rock and rolling full steam, Kaki Twan, and I'm really, really excited for, there's so much potential and there's so much room for growth, and we're already feeling that. Truly, we are. But I'm excited to continue to grow and build this brand and build this entity and take this thing to new heights that we've never seen before. I mean, I think really, truly, talking about goals with you guys, I'm not sure that we really do that a whole lot. But, I mean, guys, I think realistically, and some of my goals for this year, hitting 100,000 followers on social media, hitting 1 million downloads in a month on the podcast, obviously scaling out and growing the business to a team of 20 to 25 contributors to where my segments and my content is just a small part of the machine that is SEC Unfiltered. So, and that's why we're building out a staff now. So, I'm very excited, Kaki Twan. So, the daily lives have gotten bigger slightly, I would say. I mean, listen, we've lost we've lost some supporters. It is what it is. We've lost some folks. We've lost some folks. We've also gained an incredible number of new folks, and we're going to continue to do that. And that's what I'm excited for. So, anyways, I appreciate you asking the question. I appreciate you caring. And Alonzo Kincaid says, are you still going to cover the Gamecocks? Well, the Gamecocks are in the SEC, my friend. So when the Gamecocks, when something noteworthy happens, heck, we talked about them yesterday. And every single game they play, hey, we're going to be talking about tomorrow all of the SEC basketball games, every single one of them. That includes the Gamecocks. So it's not like we're never talking Gamecocks again. That's where we are. So anyways, listen, I appreciate all the questions. I appreciate all of the questions. Really, truly, I do. Cody Larmer says, Chris, what about the Florida State backup quarterback trending for South Carolina? Yeah, Tate Rodemaker. That'd be interesting. I mean, look, here's the conundrum, Cody, that South Carolina finds themselves in. This is why they're struggling to find a quarterback in the portal, because the bag of goods they're selling to someone in the portal is, well, we have our guy in Lenora Sellers, even though he's unproven, even though he's an unproven true freshman, but we just need some quality depth. Want to come on board? Like, there aren't many guys that are going to buy into that. Like, not many guys that are in the portal are looking to come sit behind a freshman. Like, for everything that Lenora Sellers may be and all the hype, like, he's done nothing. So if I'm a guy in the portal and I'm like, I value my skill set, my talent, my experience, you're not going to sit here and tell me I'm guaranteed to sit behind a freshman. Like, you're just going to have a really, really hard time selling that bag of goods. You are. You're going to have a hard time selling that bag of goods. So, anyways, guys, again, I love talking the business side of stuff, man. We've actually got a great conversation lined up tonight. We're going to talk with the guys over at the Goj podcast. You might recall I've gone on their show before. The show will drop Sunday per those guys, and it's going to be a lot of business chatter, a lot of stuff. I'll pull back the curtain, a lot of the decision-making. And but again, like I said, man, and again, we'll go more in depth on this. I've had this conversation many times on the air here, but now I'm excited to talk with those guys on the business side. And I always appreciate it, guys, because I value being transparent and honest and clear with you guys and everything that happens. And that's how we've built the business. And that's how we're going to continue to build the business. So, guys, as we wrap things up, do not forget, you're on YouTube. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube, hit that bell icon so you get notifications of when we go live and we drop new video content as well. Also, be sure to follow along with the podcast, guys. Check us out via podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast. And, of course, guys, we're all across social media at SEC Unfiltered. Content bleeding out of the eyeballs there. And stay tuned to SECUnfiltered.com as we add new contributors. Guys, I promise you, written content, the content there will be increasing rapidly. Absolutely rapidly. So stay tuned for that. Guys, appreciate you all tuning in. Thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your Thursday, and we will talk to you all tomorrow.